Welcome back, guys. It's a gorgeous day here in Zone 5A in Iowa. If you're new here, my husband Dan and I have this channel because we're trying to become more self-sufficient. And if any of this interests you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you can be notified when we upload a new video. Today's video is going to be down in the garden. I'm going to show you what's going on with my rhubarb down there, and we're going to fix it, hopefully. And we're going to check on the onions that we planted about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And then I want to bring you back up here and show you what's going on with my winter sowing jugs. So let's go. Look at the onions we planted a week and a half, 2 weeks ago now. I did have to come out here the next day and move some of the starts out of that area because I'm going to be planting cucumbers there, and I forgot. Cucumbers that are going to go over a cattle panel trellis. But you can see the starts, of course, they are bigger than the sets. But look at the sets go. They are really coming along. And there's the starts I replanted down there, and they look fine even after being replanted. I did notice that something tried to come in here and have a nibble. I'm not sure if that's going to be viable anymore, but we'll go ahead and push that back down in just to see what happens. You can see the same thing happen here. This has been dug up. But it looks like I may have gotten this one in time. So we'll push him back down in. The rest of them look pretty good. I only noticed maybe 1 or 2 that haven't taken off and started to grow yet. So I'm pretty happy with it. Here is my row of rhubarb. And I've been having trouble with the rhubarb the last couple of years. It's been here since we moved here, so we don't really know how old it is. But my mother and father grew rhubarb, and it just came up every single year. And I talked to my neighbor who has really good rhubarb. She said hers has been coming up for years and years and years. So I know it's not because the rhubarb is old. I feel like what's been happening is that the grass and weeds around it have been choking it out. I also feel like it maybe needs some compost on it. So what I did earlier this spring is my daughter and I came out here and we put some cardboard along the road to kind of suppress that grass. And so now I'm going to add some compost to each plant, and then I'm going to go ahead and do that Ruth Stout method and mulch with some heavy hay. And we'll see if we get some good rhubarb this year. Crossing my fingers. Okay, the compost is done. I've got the bricks out of the way, so it's time for some hay. Ooh, that's a workout. We've got our heavy mulch in now, and I think what I'm noticing is that it's pretty windy today and it's kind of blowing the hay around a little bit. Not terrible, but I think what I'll do is I'll go get the hose and I'll water over the top of this hay just so that it stays in place. I will do that later. Now let's go up to the house. I want to show you how my winter sowing jugs are doing. So here are the jugs that I planted, and these were planted in February and March, and I do have some coming up. I want to show you some cabbage. We've got some cabbage seedlings. We've got some broccoli coming up. We've got a habanero pepper. And this one I'm really proud of. Next to it is the heirloom delicious tomatoes. I have saved seed from last year from some of the heirloom delicious tomatoes that I was growing, and so I must have done something right because they are coming up. And I've got some various other ones coming up too. I've got some beefsteak tomatoes coming up, and they are a little bit later than normal is what I'm hearing in the winter sowing community. This is my first time doing it, but apparently because our spring has been so cool, a lot of them are not having much luck with their seedlings coming up, so I'm really happy that I have coming up what I do. Now these will not be able to go into the garden until they get their second set of true leaves. The first set is not the set of true leaves, then they'll get their true leaves after that. After they get their second set of true leaves, I can take them out and plant them in the garden. So hopefully they'll keep growing at the pace they are so that I can get them in the garden on time. What's been going on here is unseasonably cool. In fact, last week we had a day that was in the 40s, which is crazy. And now, today it's in the 70s. And then tomorrow we get rain and in the 50s. And then for the next like 5 days after that, we're unseasonably warm, like upper 80s and 70s. So a little bit about what you can do, what I'm going to do with these jugs, because just like a greenhouse, when it gets too hot inside, it has to have some way to vent the hot air. And what's going to happen over the next heat wave that we're going to get is it's going to get too hot in here, particularly for brachias like broccoli and cabbage, things that do better in the cold weather. So what we're going to do is go ahead and cut some vent holes and just leave those open. And honestly, what I really want to do is just open up a couple of these jugs that have the seedlings, but it's also going to be terribly windy, so like 25 to 35 mile an hour winds. And so that's not going to be good for very young seedlings to be in that wind. So I'm going to cut some vents in this, and hopefully we will have a good enough ventilation system for the seedlings to not get too hot. Some of these I've already cut a ventilation hole in. What I like about the milk jugs is I cut this hole, I can close it, and then I can fold it, also fold it back. So I'm just going to fold this one back, and all I'm doing is taking a carpet knife, box cutter, and cutting a flap. And then just bending it back. Tomorrow, while it's raining, it should help them get a little more rain too, but then also it should help vent for the heat. I do want to show you something about the jugs. See all the condensation on the inside of some of these jugs? Some people doing winter sowing for the first time assume that because there's condensation in the jug that the soil is moist for their seeds, but that's not always the case. The soil can be completely dry and still have condensation in the jugs. So I have been bottom watering these just to make sure the soil is wet enough for some of these seeds to come up, because some of them haven't come up yet. See you next time.